to elders past, present and emerging. Welcome to the City Infrastructure Committee meeting of the 15th of November 2022. I declare this meeting open at 9:44 a.m. I'd like to advise attendees in the room that this meeting is being webcasted and audio recorded. So do any councillors have a leave of absence to declare? So there are two that I'm aware of, Councillor Lane and Councillor Bannon. So is there a mover for this motion to give them both leaves of absences? Moved by Councillor Karansky, seconded by Councillor Hall. Do any councillors wish to speak to the motion? I now open the floor to vote. All those in favour, please raise your hand. That has been carried unanimously. Thank you, councillors. The motion has been carried. All right. I now refer to declarations of conflicts of interest. Do any councillors wish to declare a conflict of interest against any of the reports on today's agenda? There being none, I will now refer to the reports on today's agenda. Okay. Yep. Okay. I now refer to item 5.1. Traffic review of intersection of Chatswood Road and Magellan Road, Springwood. Can the Director, Mr. Mike Basterfield, please enter the open public discussions of the report? Mr. Basterfield, you may proceed.
Thanks, Mr. Chair. For this report, I see that Carl Bayer has just entered the room, the Acting Manager for Roads, Infrastructure and Planning. I might give him a minute to catch his breath and hand over to Carl.
Thank you. I will take the report as having been read. However, I'll just quickly go over the report. Sorry?
No.
All good? Yep. So the first report is about the traffic review of the intersection of Chatswood Road, Magellan Road and Old Chatswood Road intersection, which is currently a roundabout. There's been concerns raised in the past about various capacity and congestion issues, I think, as well as pedestrian safety issues. So a report was called in 2020 to discuss that intersection and look at it. At that time, we were still in COVID, so we thought it prudent to do more recent traffic counts, which we've done this year. So we're using the latest traffic data, and so the roundabout currently operates fairly close to capacity, but still operating okay. If you were to improve the roundabout, it would signalisation would not actually improve things; it would actually add more delays. However, there may be opportunities to add an extra right turn lane on the Old Chatswood Road approach, which is the off-ramp from the Pacific Motorway southbound. And that might add a little bit less delay for that approach and maybe a bit more efficiency through the whole intersection operation as well. So that is one opportunity that can be taken. However, I don't think it's actually necessary at this point in time, just at the moment. We are also pursuing some funding through the Motor Accident Insurance Commission through another agency. They're the ones providing the funding, but there's another organisation who's promoting a project at that location and a couple of other locations around Logan where we might actually install some surveillance cameras and monitor the intersection. And this is a bit of a trial to use smart technology within the cameras to see what's actually going on in that intersection, as well as the adjacent roundabout at Paradise Road, and try to identify what actual issues are going on. Because when I went out on site to observe the intersection, as I said, it does seem to be nearing capacity, but it actually functions quite well, and there's not much that could be done at this point in time to address things, and I couldn't actually see any immediate safety issues that we could address with any sort of treatment without actually blowing up the whole intersection and starting again, and that would require land resumptions and all sorts of things if you were thinking about signalisation. Throwing into the mix of that also is the Pacific Motorway upgrade and the proposed relocation of the on and off ramps to Paradise Road. So that will redistribute traffic around the area. So that will have an impact on that intersection, and current modelling by Main Roads consultants is indicating that it will actually reduce the amount of traffic going through that intersection by about 10%. So there's at least. And obviously, it would reduce the amount of traffic on the old Chatswood Road approach quite significantly, because there's no traffic going on and off the motorway. And the old Chatswood Road approach is the critical approach at the moment in terms of congestion. So I'm not sure I need to add it. It's probably best that I just take questions now rather than going on about the intersection. So.
Thank you. I'll now open the floor to councillors for discussion. So I have Councillor Raven and Councillor Bradley. Are there any more? No? Okay, so Councillor Raven.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, through you. Thanks for the presentation, Carl. On page 6 of the report, which talks about the existing roundabout performance, I was interested to read that the model indicated there would be excessive delays, but in reality that wasn't happening. Is that right?
Yes, that's correct. Yep.
So good on you for ground truthing. I love it when we ground truth the model before we start making recommendations. Do we rely on this type of modelling in other parts of the city when we're doing intersection and roundabout performance?
Yeah, we do. I mean, the thing is, once you start getting close to saturation, any model is going to be subject to things that change the operation. You can't have an exact model. Yep. And so in this case, it's just because I think it's because the flows are so balanced coming into this roundabout that it just flows. Yeah, okay. And a previous example would have been the roundabout. No, I won't use that example. Sorry, I won't go there. It's probably best not to confuse things.
No, that's okay.
But yes, it's difficult for models to accurately predict what happens when it gets close to saturation. Okay. But yes, we do use the same models for other intersections, and we try to make sure that it's not actually approaching saturation. Okay. So, yep.
And do you always ground truth it, irrelevant of whether or not the intersection's approaching saturation?
In terms of existing intersections, yeah, we can't predict what's going to happen to a new or upgraded intersection, but yes.
Oh, good. Thank you.
Not pushing it right. Yeah, next up is Councillor Bradley.
Thank you, through the chair. I wish to thank the officers for bringing this report up, and obviously I've been waiting a long time. June 2020 I raised this matter on behalf of residents who raised it with me. So from campaigning, it was pretty evident that this was a major issue in the local community. It still is a major issue. But I accept the outcome, knowing now that it is in the public domain what TMR have proposed. It will make it a little bit different in the future. I've had near misses there myself, on my bicycle particularly, but I accept the outcome, so thank you.
Are there any more questions? There being none, so is there a mover for the report's motion as displayed on the screen? Councillor Bradley has moved the motion. Mayor Power has seconded the motion. Do any councillors wish to speak to the motion? No? I'll now open the floor to vote. All those in favour, please raise your hand. The motion has been carried unanimously. Thank you, councillors. That's it. So move to the next one. Yep. I'll now refer to item 5.2 in the agendas, Capital Roadworks and Drainage Program Quarterly Report, July to September 2022. Where are we? Can the Director, Mr. Basterfield, please to open public discussion of the report? Mr. Basterfield, you may proceed.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'd like to invite Darryl Riley, the Manager for Road Infrastructure and Delivery, to deliver this to committee.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So the report is a summary of the capital program for the first quarter. There is a presentation attached to the report, which councillors would have had the opportunity to read at their leisure. I guess I'm open to the floor if you would like me to run through that presentation on where we're at, or provide just some high-order summary in regards to that.
So high order summaries, what we want? Yeah, that'd be good. Thank you, Mr. Riley.
Thank you. So probably the predominant item is in regards to how we're actually progressing with the capital program year to date, or to the end of the first quarter. So our target delivery at the end of the quarter was 26.9 million. We're slightly ahead of that at this point at 31.9. That has actually continued into the October quarter as well. At the end of October, we were predicting, or had a budget prediction for us of about 37. We were at about $45 million at the end of October. That delivery is spread across pavement rehabilitation and then our major capital works. The rehabilitation works have been, I guess, the significant portion of that work over the quarter, which comes off the back of a more difficult quarter for council in the end of 21-22. At that point in time, council was expecting that we would have, in that pavement space, 6 crews actually working for us over that duration. The 2 major storm events that occurred for the whole of the region put a significant drain on resources across all of southeast Queensland, which saw those rehabilitations, I guess, consumed by capacity with the contract industry for major failure repairs and the likes across Gold Coast, ourselves, Moreton, Brisbane, etc. So we've had a fairly strong start to the year with a significant amount of work in that rehabilitation area, which we've been able to roll out and deliver, which is evident on the figures to date, where we spent about 20 million at the end of the first quarter on pavement rehabilitation works. I will skip over the projects under construction. There are photos for most of those. There's information if people wish to come back and ask questions on those. Certainly in regards to the rest of the rehabilitation programs, we've been at significant sites throughout the year already, and that will continue. We will see those works continue. We have significant works which are in all stages of development for us at the moment, ranging from project development through the works that we have in detailed design, and works which are actually in tender or in the process of being purchased at this stage. Okay, that's all fine, and we have some significant projects which will be commencing in the balance of this year for us as well. There are still some risks attached to the capital program. We're seeing, I guess, escalations in cost, which are playing out across the whole of the industry. Material supply, particularly around gravels, pipe supplies and the likes, are a risk to us. The other one which council would be aware of is El Nino still presents a risk for us as we run into the wet part of the season. That had a significant impact upon us last year. I'm very hopeful that we will not be in that situation again. Thank you, and I'm happy for any questions.
Thank you. I will now open the floor to councillors for discussion. So I have Councillor Wilcox, Councillor Power, Councillor Raven. Are there any more people who'd like to ask questions? Councillor Jeremiah. Okay, Councillor Wilcox, you may ask your question.
Thank you, Chair. Just very quickly, thank you. The roundabout upgrade is chugging along nicely. There's been a few hiccups, but it's going all right. But I have asked previously, but I haven't seen this yet. Just general basic costings on it, because it's gone from 1 million and now it says 1.1. but I would like to see some general costings on this one, on that project, please. Also, I've recently been asked by a resident, and hoping you can give me a estimated time frame on this, the construction of the bridge replacement at Tully Bridge. Do we have an ETA on that one?
I will need to take that on notice and come back to you. I don't know that off the cuff, I'm sorry. Yep.
Awesome. If you can take that on notice, and I think you and I are catching up on Thursday about a few things, that would be marvellous. And also, in attachment 1 in the rehab projects, correct me if I'm wrong, Councillor Fraser, you've got one on here and it's listed as Div 11. I don't think these are in Div 11. You've got Bennett Drive and Aquila Drive Greenbank. I think they're both in Regent's Park. I actually don't know that I have those roads in Greenbank.
Bennett Drive is in Regent's Park. Aquila, probably the same, but yeah.
If you could just double check those. I went searching and
I'll follow up on those. Yep.
Thank you. That's all for me.
Okay, next up we have Mayor Power.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. A number of issues. The report basically touches on the problems obtaining some of the materials for construction, and it talks about the increase in prices, but how much are we looking at? And the other one is bitumen, that being an oil-based product. How much is that? It's just, I think, for all of us to sort of acknowledge, how much has that gone up?
That's a very difficult off-the-cuff question, but there certainly has been movement in that price point. Certainly, if we look anecdotally at what we're seeing, I guess, play out in industry, there seems to be some suggestion between about 20 to 30% in construction material costs generally. I don't think we've seen a significant push beyond what we've actually catered for within our asphalt costs. So we do have a rise and fall arrangement built into that contract, and we have been working closely with those providers around that. I can come and talk to you about that in detail if you would like me to actually source some information on that.
Yeah, I'm interested in that, but also in regards to the supply of bitumen, given that we're a growing city and we're heavily reliant on that, do you know where it's actually produced? Is this an overseas product, or is it something we do in Australia? I'm interested because obviously there's a lot of turmoil in the world, and I'm just wondering whether or not, you know, it's a flowing tap, or there is a chance that it could be turned off, because we're really, really dependent on this product.
It is an oil-based product, so I think they do use a mixture of oil products that are manufactured in Australia and some that come from overseas. In terms of the actual manufacture for us of the asphalt itself from the oil, the major two users, companies we deal with are Fulton Hogan and Downer Resources. Both of them have plants in close proximity to us, albeit not inside the city boundary. So Fulton Hogan are just over the boundary into Gold Coast down in Yatala, and Downer, their manufacturing plant is in, I think it's Coopers Plains, or very close to there. So the majority of the aggregate and those aspects of the material come from local quarries. So we basically see sand and stone being the primary materials which go to that with oil, but oil we do have an exposure to the same as the rest of the world.
In regards to the pipes, and I'm fully aware of the project that took place down at the water treatment plant, where council was smart enough to order the pipes, I think 9 months in advance, and the biggest project we're doing is expected to come in under budget and on time, which is great. That's something that I acknowledge council's done really well. How far are we getting to, obviously, you talk about the supply of pipes. Have we got a dwindling supply that we're going to be sort of getting to the point where we're going to be behind because of that?
So typically, if I go back and talk historically about our major construction programs, pipe supply has been a matter which has been with the contractors we engage for them to actually source and use those materials. Over the last 12 months, council's been, I guess, proactive in this in that there's become longer lead times in regards to pipes. So we actually now are, for our major projects which rely on master drainage projects and the likes, which are relying on a lot of pipes, where we're actually going to the market for tender to actually purchase pipes under a contract arrangement, and then we actually novate that contract to the successful tenderer for the works. So ultimately they take on ownership of that contract and the material supply to them. Separate to that, we have been working towards, and we're in the process of establishing this now, a position where we will actually create a larger stockpile of pipes, which we haven't historically had. So we're looking at actually running a contract to be able to procure those, and we're looking at Bega Road as a storage location for those. Now, they will take up a fair amount of space, so they are, I guess, fairly hungry for space to actually be able to store the sort of quantities we're talking about. Historically, it's not been an issue which council's had to deal with, but we are in unique circumstances, and we recognise we need to do something, I guess, to get us more surety over our own capability or capacity to deliver. As I said, that's a project we're working on at the moment.
If there's one thing that I can rely on with engineers, it's their initiative, so I congratulate you on that, because obviously this is something that it could be an ongoing problem, and obviously we want to see things continue on. So well done with that, and Mike for the project down at the treatment plant. In regards to the master drainage program, are we on to that? Is this part of this report, the master drainage? No? No?
Sorry, in what capacity? Certainly the projects which we've been delivering, so Woodlands Drive was in the report,
Yep.
And listed within the report are the next two major master drainage projects which we're looking to start, which are Kelper and Kelly Street
Yep.
catchments, which are down in Eagleby. I think Woodbeck was in there as a project we're nearing completion on as well, which is down there.
No, it's just for my interest, how many properties were possible flooding because of that?
I don't know that off the cuff. Sorry, I would need to take that on notice.
Because it's a
and actually
massive
look at
project. It's $33 million. I
Yep.
would like to think you would have done an analysis on that, given that the possibility of purchasing flood-affected properties might have been a better outcome. I was just wondering whether you would have had that available.
Certainly, if we look at, say, Cowper and Kelly, sorry, there was two parts of the question. The first part is around how we prioritise the work within master drainage. So certainly we do look at the number of affected properties, and then we look at the cost of the project. So the projects which we deliver are the ones that receive the most benefit from the work that we would do for the dollars spent. So it is proportional, but we're actually looking for, I guess, the best outcome in that regard. So dollars per property that we actually can remove flooding from is effectively whichever project is the highest scoring in that regard is the ones that we deliver on. When we get to a lot of these projects which are not actually flooding, they're local stormwater drainage issues. So it's where the water's actually falling in that catchment and before it actually gets to the waterway. But it means that those areas are typically very spread out. So they basically run back through multiple streets with multiple properties affected. To that extent, they don't lend themselves well to that idea of actually purchasing properties or I guess that model which has now been set in place by the federal government around buying back properties which are flood impacted. Our master drainage isn't well suited to that type of arrangement. It is more around local drainage in streets to make sure that we're not seeing those systems overwhelmed, causing the problems.
Okay, but you would have analysed that?
We certainly do, and we would. In terms of prioritising, we analyse all of the properties which are affected, and that ends up becoming the measure around which projects we actually do.
Okay, all right, thank you.
Councillor Murphy would like to end the discussion about the Eagleby properties and the master drainage around there. So, I'll leave it to you.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Mr. Mayor, just to give you some contents, Kelly Street and Cowper Avenue, the drainage system there is 30 to 40 years old, and in some areas it's actually failing. The concrete pipes are starting to cave in and we've got holes coming through sporting grounds, the community hall, etc, etc. So I really look forward to that project being done early next year as soon as possible. None of those properties are flood affected. the Woodbeck Street, only on Quarrian Street, the lower properties, they all back onto Doug Larson Park. Some of them have some flood affecting, but only in their backyards. So no roads or no into houses.
So what's the flooding issue?
None. You were asking whether any of these properties flooded.
We're spending $33 million on drainage with no houses being affected.
If I
I'm
can
just wondering
clarify,
what's the benefit?
In clarification of that, so there's two different ways in which we see water impacting on properties. One is flooding, which is where we see backup of, say, those regional rivers and creeks, which actually come up and flood properties. The other is where we actually see rainfall within the catchment. So if I take an example and say Woodlands Drive, which was in Division 1, there were certainly properties which were being impacted by stormwater, which has actually fallen on that catchment before it can actually get out into a major creek. So the impact that they're seeing is not one of flooding, it's not a rising river which is coming back up to impact those properties, but they are properties which have been impacted by having water within the property, but it's because the water can't get away. So the drainage systems which we upgrade under master drainage are about removing stormwater which has actually fallen to get it away to those major tributaries, rather than the converse, which is where we see flooding of a tributary which is rising. It's fundamental in the way that program runs. When we look at it that way, we can do very little for flooding which comes from a Logan River or an Albert. We can't move that water anywhere else. It's a rising tributary which impacts those people. Where we have, I guess, capacity limitations within the underground drainage system, which may be well up from where we're actually seeing the flooding occurring, we have the ability to build more capacity in those, which will actually see houses which have been impacted by water through them not impacted in the future. So it's not flooding, it's inundation due to capacity limitations in our network, and the improvement in the network sees a benefit. Yep.
Okay, because previously with the master drainage program, the houses or the flood programs were in fact a result of the system failing and properties were being flooded out. So what you're saying is the programs are getting to a point now where we've been able to satisfy those customers, and now it's just looking at the water loading, not the actual the outcome of actually flooding. I'm just wondering whether that's a good value for money.
I guess it's the definition of the term flooding, which we're probably getting caught on here. So the properties, and there continue to be properties across the city which have future works included on the master drainage program, where there is water which ends up in people's houses. Now, because that water isn't coming from a river, it's not classified as flooding. So flooding, so by definition, to be flooding, it has to be rising water from a creek or from a river, which actually is causing flooding, which is impacting a property. Across the city, we certainly still have drainage systems or networks which are, in larger events, being exceeded for capacity, and the resultant outcome of that is water ends up in private property and potentially in private houses. So under the master drainage program, we're looking at those properties which actually have water in their property and in their houses, where from an upgrade of the drainage system, we can prevent that from happening. So yes, it is, if we want to use a general term for flooding which says water in a house, then yes, it is, but I guess we need to be very careful, because people get very passionate about the term flooding when it's the drainage, they're in a trap sag in the end of a cul-de-sac, the pipe which would actually take the water away is being exceeded for capacity, and because of that it overflows out of the street into their property, and the water ends up in their house. Now, that doesn't
Darryl, it's all right. I understand now.
Yep.
You tricked me up when you said it wasn't flooding, but it's flooding,
Yep.
but it's not flooding. That's
Okay.
fine. I understand.
Thank you.
Okay, next up we have Councillor Raven.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, through you. So Daryl, how far overdue is Gilmore Road? When was it meant to be finished?
I am not aware of the date, but I am aware that it is overdue, yes.
And I know that you're working to minimise the ongoing delays with the contractor. Generally, what would be really helpful with reports like these, we see them with the operational plan, and we see it with, I think Parks have started doing it now, and SLF with the community infrastructure program. It's something that indicates whether the project is green, like it's on track, whether it's yellow, it's being monitored because it's about to go over, or if it's red, it's being delayed. Because when you spin through this report, you would think that all of these programs are running on time, but they're not. And councillors should know that, so they can cast their eye over and go, wow, there's a problem here because we're behind, and there may be reasons for that, but at least we can then ask those questions. Like, the only reason I know Gilmore Road is over is because I'm getting harassed by residents saying, hey, when can we get through? When can we get through? When's it going to be open again? So it'd be good if this sort of quarterly update could just indicate where we're sitting with those reports in future, so it's easy to cast an eye across it and go, oh, look, they're all green, they're doing a great job. Thank you.
I'll take on board that feedback and have a look at that. Thank you. Yep.
Next we have Councillor Heremiah.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'll be quick. This was a really exciting report at the beginning for me because it said major construction projects. There's some pretty major construction happening in my division, so I was looking forward to seeing council pull its weight too. According to the ABS, Chambers Flat and Logan Reserve are in the top 5 suburbs of population growth in Greater Brisbane. Division 8, according to the Courier Mail, is home to the largest warehouse development in the southern hemisphere on this side of the world. Yet when I go through the completed major construction projects in Q1 and the 22 to 23 major construction project program, I don't see any Division 8 projects. So could you please let me know, when is the next major construction project in Division 8 expected to commence?
There are several projects which are in development for us at this point, which we're trying to get to construction shortly. One is Chambers Flat Road, south of Parkridge Road, through the intersection at school, which I'm aware that you're very aware of. And the other, which we're working with a developer to try and finalise, is Doug White Drive near the Parkridge Shopping Centre. I will need to come back to you with timing on those. I don't have that information directly to hand. The other one, which is worth noting, however, is that the roadworks actually associated with the Point Corp development are actually works which were funded by council through infrastructure charges. So there was an offset and then refund of funding to Point Corp to actually build that infrastructure. So while that was delivered for council by the developer, it was certainly funding which actually flowed through our program to them.
Thank you for that. And regarding upgrading Chambers Flat Road south of Parkridge Road, council has done some great work regarding the planning of that, and I'm wanting to understand when it's expected that a web page on council's website will be launched to inform the community about that. There's a similar one for different road upgrades around. I was led to understand that that web page would be launched by the end of October. It's now November. So do we have an update on when that web page is expected to launch so the community can know some of the work that council's doing?
I will make a time to come and talk to you about that and provide some detail. Certainly we are progressing towards that well. We have a lot of the information that we need to be able to build that. We will come and talk to you about the comms plan for that. Yep.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you, councillors. Are there any more questions that anyone would like to ask? There being none, there's a motion on the screen now. So is there a mover for the report's motion as displayed on the screen? Councillor Power has moved the motion. Councillor Bradley has seconded the motion. Do any councillors wish to speak to the motion? No. There being none, I'll now open the floor to vote. All those in favour, please raise your hand. The motion has been carried unanimously. Thank you, councillors. All right, I'll now refer to item 5.3. Can the director, Mr. Mike Basterfield, please enter the discussions? I, however, note that item 5.3 is confidential and it is considered necessary to take the discussions of this report into a closed session. This matter relates to the Local Government Regulation 2012, Section 254J, subsection 3. Okay, so do any councillors wish to move into closed session for this item? So, yep. So, where are we? So I don't have to keep reading all that. Okay. Okay, so thank you, councillors. A motion to close the meeting is now displayed on the screen. So the mover was Councillor Bradley, seconder was Councillor Wilcox. Okay, so all those in favour, please raise your hand. Okay, the motion has been carried unanimously. Thank you, councillors. So, session. Has the live stream recommenced? Thank you. And the recording's gone off or whatever needs to happen. Okay, so there's the motion on the screen. So is there a mover for the report's motion? Councillor Wilcox has moved the motion. Do I have a seconder? Okay, Councillor Raven has seconded the motion. Do any councillors wish to speak to the motion? No? I now open the floor to vote. All those in favour, please raise your hand. The motion has been carried unanimously. Thank you, councillors. Okay, so the last one now, thank goodness. Okay, so this one's sort of similar to the other one, I'm guessing, isn't it? So some of the questions that were asked previously should not need to be asked again. So I now refer to item 5.4 on the agendas. It is Bars Scrub to Beenleigh Corridor Assessment. Can the Director, Mr. Mike Basterfield, please enter the discussions? I note that item 5.4 is confidential and is considered necessary to take the discussion of this report into a closed session. This matter relates to the Local Government Regulation 2012 in Queensland, section 254J, subsection 3. Do any councillors wish to move into closed session for this item? Okay, Councillor Kerensky does. So where are we? So a motion to close the meeting is now displayed on the screen. So Councillor Kerensky moves. Second, yep, Councillor Murphy has seconded. Sorry, I've got to turn the page. Okay, so I'll now open the floor to vote. All those in favour, please raise your hands. Okay, the motion has been carried unanimously. Thank you, councillors. So please be advised that the meeting is now in confidential session and therefore the live streaming of this meeting will be suspended until the meeting reopens. Is that correct now? Live streams, yep, finished. that correct? Thank you. Okay, so on the screen behind us, the motion is displayed. So Councillor Hall would like to move the motion, and Councillor Murphy has seconded the motion. Do any councillors wish to speak to the motion? No? I'll now open the floor to vote. All those in favour, please raise your hand. The motion has been carried unanimously. Thank you, councillors. Okay, so does anyone have any general business for the road infrastructure delivery manager? Councillor Bradley, do you have any? You do have GB, and did Councillor Russell as well? Yep. Thank you. Okay, Councillor Bradley, you may proceed.
I just really would like to acknowledge Devon Acker. I believe that he is leaving, and he's been here the whole time I've been here. And I do recall having a community meeting at his house before I was a councillor, so he's obviously got a bit of interest in the local area as well. Could my best wishes please be passed on, and my sincere thanks for his professionalism over the years. Thank you.
Councillor Russell.
Thank you, Chair. I've got a question for the Acting Director. With regard to the...
Oh, this was for the Road Infrastructure Delivery Manager first. I'll ask about the Director next. But
oh, sorry about that.
That's all right. I'll keep you in mind now for that. So is there any more GB for the Road Infrastructure Delivery Manager at all? No? Okay, thank you, Mr. Manager. Okay, so that concludes the agenda for today. Does anyone have any GB for the Acting Director, Road and Water Infrastructure? Councillor Russell, you may ask your question now.
Thank you so much. So I just wanted to ask a question with regard to the information that's recently gone public about the expansion of the M1. I wanted to know if Council would be putting in a submission about the perspectives about the what was put forward.
Through the chair, I'm going to have to get back to you about that, councillor, which I will do.
Thank you. Has anyone else got any GB for the Acting Director? Okay, there being none, I declare the City Infrastructure Committee meeting of 15th of November 2022 concluded at 11:23 a.m. Thank you.